Okay, let's do this. You read the title, so let's keep this brief. Ranking every character in South Park from worst to best is not an easy task because there are a lot of characters in this show, and almost all of them are good characters. My criteria I used to determine if a character would be included in this ranking was as follows. The character has to appear in at least 2 episodes and must have at least some significance to the episodes. This means that background characters who appear throughout the show are not included, as they are less of characters and more of props to fill the scenes. I also won't be including any celebrity characters in the list with the exception of 2, as these characters have strong distinctions from their real-life celebrity counterparts. I've also grouped some characters together as they function as one character in the show, for example the Weitz family and some of the kids' parents. For the actual ranking, I broke it down into a tier list. The tiers are C, B, A, and S. Though I'll be using the tiers to quantify what level of character they are, this list is still in order from worst to best, so a character at the top of a tier is higher ranked than a character at the bottom of the same tier. As I mentioned, there really aren't any characters in the show I would truly consider to be bad characters, so even those ranked low on the list aren't necessarily bad, they're just not as good as the ones above them. My criteria for what makes one character better than another is almost solely entertainment value. If I find them more entertaining, they will be ranked higher. I also factored in a bit of consistency, since if a character appears more often, they are more likely to have more enjoyable moments. Now keep in mind, this is of course just my opinion. Your list will likely be pretty different than mine, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's important to remember that at the end of the day, everyone has different preferences, and if you disagree with my list, that's perfectly fine. You know, it's okay to be wrong sometimes. Without bad opinions, there would be no good opinions, so I thank everyone that disagrees with me for helping me make the distinction between a good and a bad opinion. Your work is not in vain. So, with the intro out of the way, let's get into it. Every South Park character ranked from worst to best. Okay, so I'm sure that many of you normally would skip an ad, but you're going to want to stick around for today's because today's video is sponsored by U2s. U2s makes designer collectibles that capture the joy of the internet, creators, TV shows, video games, anime, and much more. They have released hundreds of unique collectibles and plushies, including creators like Mr. Beast and Markiplier, and even TV shows and animes like Breaking Bad, SpongeBob, and Avatar, some of my favorite shows of all time. Speaking of my favorite shows, they just released their second South Park collection. These ones are from Good Times with Weapons, and they have them in their little ninja poses. They sent me over the Cartman and the Stan ones, and I love them so much. It's the easiest way to celebrate my favorite TV show. They also still have some from their previous South Park collection, but some are sold out, and that's because U2s are limited edition. Every figure is made from a new design, and once they sell out, they're gone forever and are never released again. These are available on U2s.com, and they are perfect to start or grow your own South Park collection, as well as a gift to a South Park fan. I know me personally, I have very few South Park collectibles, so it's nice to finally have some. And as I mentioned, it's not just South Park, they have tons of plushies and figures. They have Stranger Things, they have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they have Naruto. They have so many cool things, and I highly recommend you head over to U2s.com today and try to grab one of those South Park collectibles before they sell out. So either click the link in the description or head over to U2s.com right now and grab your collectibles before they're gone. And a huge thank you to U2s for sponsoring this video. Alright, the C tier. So in terms of... Oh wait, I almost forgot. Let me just make sure to... Yep, okay. There we go. Okay, now we can get started. Miss Crabtree is one of the first characters we are introduced to in the entire show, acting as the bus driver for the boys. She's pretty much just your cliche bus driver, incredibly mean and always shouting at the kids. My biggest issue with her is that she is just so unbearably annoying to the point that every time she's on screen, I brace myself for her screaming. She always acted as more of a background character for the most part. However, in City on the Edge of Forever, she takes center stage, and this goes about as well as you would imagine, with this episode being placed in the D tier on my ranking list. All around, she was far more annoying than she was ever funny, and because of that, I wasn't too upset when they killed her off in Season 8. Detective Harris summarized my feelings pretty well.
Bus driver for the elementary school. She was considered an ancillary character, one the fans wouldn't miss much.
So the Weitz are a family that I grouped together for one spot because there are really no distinctions between any of their family members. Their sole function is to parody the victim complex some white people have developed in recent years. While I thought this was a clever way to do that when they were first introduced, over time I began disliking the Weitz more and more since the joke got old pretty quick. My biggest problem is that it's just so on the nose. There's no subtlety in the characters, they just fully acknowledge their role as the oppressed white people. And as I mentioned, this was funny at first, but if you're gonna keep their characters around this long, there needs to be something else to the characters. This doesn't mean they have no funny moments. For example, in the vaccination special, I thought the whites were great and worked really well with the plot, but for the most part, I feel as though there is not nearly enough depth to them to keep them entertaining. I wasn't sure if I was going to include Mr. Adler in this list since he really only has one episode where he does anything, but I decided to include him because he still does have small parts in other episodes. He's mostly just a pretty forgettable character. He's always telling the children to quit screwing around. His first appearance is in Tweek vs. Craig, where he is shown to be traumatized by the passing of his fiancée. He has these bizarre flashbacks that parody the movie RoboCop, and in the end, the flashbacks are what help him move on. There's nothing particularly bad about his character, but he's probably the least memorable character on this list. Betsy and Roger Donovan are Clyde's parents. Roger is a pretty forgettable character, as he basically has no character traits outside of being Clyde's dad. Betsy, on the other hand, plays a large role in the episode Reverse Cowgirl. The whole episode is about whose responsibility it is to put the toilet seat down, men or women, and the debate is sparked after Clyde leaves it up and his mother falls into the toilet, literally killing her. She makes sure to essentially blame Clyde for her death in her final moments and later returns as a ghost so she can blame him even more. This definitely brings down their ranking a lot since I don't think I have to tell you how messed up it is to blame your 8-year-old son for your death in your final moments. And it would be different if it was the kind of funny trauma that Butters experiences all the time, but this wasn't really that funny, so yeah. Miss Nelson took over the role as the 4th grade teacher when Garrison was off on his presidential campaign. Similarly to Mr. Adler, she was never really much of an interesting character, and for the most part she was just a normal person, which is incredibly rare to find in South Park, but her most prominent role was in the vaccination special, where she attempted to acquire vaccines for the teachers from the boys. Unfortunately, she had contracted COVID shortly before receiving the vaccines and ends up dying to the virus. This was after Mr. Garrison had finished his presidential term, so she pretty much just acted as a filler character while he was gone, and was promptly killed off when he returned. Mr. and Mrs. Stevens are the parents of Bebe. Mr. Stevens is basically just a background character with no distinctive traits at all. However, Miss Stevens does have a few distinct moments. Her largest role is in Bebe's Boobs Destroy Society, where she helps Bebe when she begins developing earlier than all the other girls. She reveals that it is common in the family for the women to rely on their looks to get them through life, and Bebe is just following that tradition. Not the best move from a mother to encourage your child to rely on their looks to get by, but hey, what do I know? If I had made this list a few months ago, I wouldn't have included PP, but after he played a huge role in the Streaming Wars specials, it felt appropriate. His first appearance was in the episode P as the owner of the water park, and he was pretty funny in that episode with a pretty over-the-top Italian accent and fear of losing his water park. When he returns in the Streaming Wars, he is revealed to be plotting to corner the market and take advantage of the drought in Colorado. After seeing him for 2 extra hours, it definitely brought my enjoyment of his character down a bit, as his accent ended up getting pretty grating the more I listened to it, but he's still a decent character all around.
Have you all forgotten about the PP? I have Denver's largest water park!
Honestly, it feels kind of sacrilegious placing God this low on the list. His character design is pretty hilarious since he's just an incredibly ugly creature. Other than that, his character is mostly just a pretty level-headed and understanding guy without too many appearances in the show. It's always enjoyable whenever he shows up, but his character isn't interesting enough to make him place any higher on this list.
What did you expect me to look like, my son?
Well, not like that.
Leslie is a character that exists as a side character at the beginning of season 19 and later becomes the main antagonist of the season. The running gag throughout the season of PC Principal yelling at her to stop talking always makes me laugh, and I always enjoyed her villain arc when she is revealed to be an ad late in the season and Jimmy tries to help her just for her to turn on Jimmy and try to help Nathan with his plan. Her character is a reference to the movie Ex Machina as well, and they nailed that parody. Her story ends when PC Principal puts a stop to her plot by punching a hole straight through her head, and all around I enjoyed her character for what it was.
To introduce you to their culture, and hey Leslie, shut your mouth!
Harriet is the mother of Henrietta, the female goth kid, and she basically acts as the antithesis to her daughter. It's always funny to see her daughter sitting in her dark room, brooding and complaining about her horrible life just for her mother to walk in and be the most upbeat and positive mother. It's a funny gag, but it's basically the full extent of her character, so that's why she's not higher. Miss Tucker is Craig's mother, and she has relatively few roles throughout the show. For the most part, she acts as a background character, but there have been moments when her character has been shown. The first real time is when she is distressed searching for Craig in the episode Pandemic. Her biggest role was in the episode The Magic Bush, where her privacy is invaded by a drone and she finds herself having to defend her choice of body hair to the entire town. This is a pretty hilarious plot as she continually defends her natural body while everyone in the town acts like she should be ashamed of it. That's really the full extent of her character, and because of these rather minor roles, her character is here. Miss Chokesondik was introduced as a replacement for Mr. Garrison after he was fired for being gay in season 4. She was much stricter and all the 4th graders hated her even more than Mr. Garrison somehow. For the most part, she was a pretty straightforward, strict teacher, with her biggest role coming in proper condom use, where she leads the push to scare all the girls away from sexual activity at far too young of an age, while simultaneously developing her own relationship with Mr. Mackey. They give us some of the most disturbing scenes from the whole show, but this is a funny episode and it suits her character well. She's eventually killed off suddenly in the episode Simpsons Already Did It, and I don't think anyone was all that upset about it, hence why her character is here. Grandpa Marsh's character has had some dramatic changes over the years. Early in the show, his only real character trait was his urge to die, constantly encouraging Stan to assist him in his endeavors to end his own life. As the show went on, he would play a few larger roles, like in Grey Dawn when he's used along with the other elderly people in town to discuss the issue of elderly people having driver's license. His last major role would come in Cash for Gold, where he begins to lose his memory and discusses it with Stan. The episode is a real tearjerker, and it would be his last big role in the show. He's made some smaller appearances in more recent seasons and the Vaccination Special, but as of now he's been relegated to more of a background character. Even though this is the case, his character has had a surprising amount of depth to it and quite the unique evolution over time, and if he was utilized more, I think he could be a great character.
I'm not gonna kill you, Grandpa.
Why not?
'Cause I'll get in trouble.
I killed my grandpa when I was your age.
Nicole was introduced in the episode Cartman Finds Love, basically just so that Cartman could try to set her up with Token because he's racist. She does end up being Token's girlfriend for much of the show until she follows all the other girls in breaking up with their boyfriends in season 20. Her biggest role is in the episode Board Girls, where she continually proves to Cartman that girls can be just as good as boys in the board games they are playing. All around, she hasn't had too many opportunities to showcase her personality, but in the few times she has, I've enjoyed them. Red is definitely more of a background character than most of the other characters on this list. However, she has remained one of the most prominent female 4th graders behind Wendy and Bebe since the beginning. She hasn't had all that many roles throughout the series, but whenever we do see her personality, it's always funny. My personal favorite is her interaction with Jimmy in Erection Day.
I was wondering if I could stick my penis in your vagina.
What? No way!
But the talent show is tomorrow. Oh,
Jerk!
What is there to say about Scott Tenorman? He was a major jerk to Cartman, and this went about as well as you would expect it to. His parents were killed and fed to him while being embarrassed in front of his favorite band. As horrible of a person as Scott Tenorman is, you could argue he's one of the more important characters in the entire show, since his actions alone are what caused Cartman's character to evolve from an annoying spoiled kid to the narcissistic, sociopathic monster that we have. So, say what you want about Scott Tenorman, but he is a huge part of the reason this show is as legendary as it is. Therefore, I have to show him at least a little respect. You all probably know how I feel about Terrence and Phillip already. I think that Terrence and Phillip's characters are perfectly crafted in the sense that they achieve exactly what they are meant to. They are meant to be a parody of South Park itself, making fun of the way some people view the show, fart jokes, and profanity. However, this doesn't mean that I always enjoy their time on screen. Sometimes they can be a little too good at their job to the point where it just becomes annoying. This is seen in basically any Terrence and Phillip focused episode, as the majority of them just become the thing that they're trying to parody. So while I do love their characters for what they represent, there are a lot of times where the irony is lost and they just become obnoxious. Visitors don't really have any character traits since they don't really talk, but they've been shown since the pilot episode, so I would be doing them a disservice to not place them on this list. They are commonly seen hidden in the background of episodes, and it's always cool when you notice one you had never seen before. The only time we've really seen any personality from them is when they talk to the cows, and they determine that the cows are the most intelligent beings on the planet. Other than that, they are quite literally background characters, but they're special because it's fun to try and spot them.
Moo, moo, moo. Moo, moo, moo. Moo.
Kevin himself isn't really much of a character, but every time the other boys interact with him, it's always funny. He's basically always playing the wrong game or saying the wrong thing, often causing Cartman to respond with,
Kevin, god damn it.
His character might not be much, but the exchanges with him are always funny. As the parents of Wendy, Mr. and Mrs. Testaberger are put into unique situations pretty often. Mrs. Testaberger has been shown to care about Wendy's well-being, objecting to her request for breast implants and Bebe's boobs destroy society. Her father has been shown to be a pretty normal guy for the most part, with an exception when he takes Wendy to buy the new clothes all the other girls are buying. He's initially not a fan of the provocative nature of these clothes, but his mind is quickly changed when he is seduced by two girls who are likely underage. Outside of this instance, Wendy's parents have proven to be some of the more caring parents in the show and have provided some entertaining moments. Cupid Me, or Cupid Cartman, is a character I considered not putting in this list at all, but he has had 2 whole episodes where he plays a large part in the plot, so based on my criteria, it was only fair that he ended up on this list. Even though he only exists in Cartman's mind, he actually is pretty distinct from Cartman. He cares a lot about love, as you would expect from a Cupid, and he's created a lot of funny and memorable moments. I also love that they still include some of Cartman's traits in him, like how he can't resist peeing in the mouth of the people that he makes fall in love just because he thinks it's funny. The idea behind Man Bear Pig has always been pretty funny to me. He was first mentioned in season 10 when Al Gore continuously hunted him as a way to get attention. He was never seen in the episode because he wasn't actually supposed to exist. As I've talked about before, his character is a metaphor for global warming. This episode was made in 2006, and at that time we didn't have the wealth of evidence that we have now to support its existence. So the episode was basically making fun of Al Gore for chasing after what at the time was basically a conspiracy. He was seen on screen for the first time the next season in Imagination Land, again implying that he is imaginary. In season 22 he returned again, but this time he was very real in creating a path of destruction. His most recent appearance was in the 2 Paramount Plus specials, The Streaming Wars, where he is shown to be causing the droughts on the West Coast. I love that they have committed to using him as the representation for climate change, even after basically admitting that they were wrong about climate change, and his character design is pretty cool, honestly. The Streaming Wars also revealed that he has a family, so maybe in the future they will become prominent characters as well. Mr. and Mrs. Vollmer are the parents of Jimmy. They care a lot about Jimmy and have proven that they just want what's best for him. The biggest example of this is when Jimmy joins the Crips and they sit him down and try to convince him that it is a bad idea. They also try to help him when he begins to go through puberty by reminding him it's completely normal, and they hire a doctor to talk about it with him. Granted, this doctor was revealed to have some ulterior motives, but it's the thought that counts. Not only do they seem to be generally good people, they've had some pretty hilarious moments throughout the show as well. For example, when they claim that God gave them a handicapped child as a punishment since they used to make fun of crippled kids in high school, which is absurd, as well as when Jimmy's father walks into his room and asks whether he was pleasuring himself. All around, they're very caring parents and have proven to be funny whenever they are included.
Jimmy, were you masturbating?
Karen McCormick is Kenny's sister, and we don't get to see much of her throughout the series. I'm pretty sure she actually didn't even exist for a very long time in the show, and she kind of just appeared one day. Her first real appearance wasn't until season 15 in The Poor Kid, where she immediately endeared herself to everyone watching. She's just a kid who is struggling through a tough life. Her interactions with Kenny are what really make her character important, as Kenny tries his best to help make her life just a little bit better by helping her out as Mysterion. She's helped provide some very wholesome moments in her few appearances, and because of that, her character is very essential. Similarly to Man Bear Pig, the PC babies are less of a standard character and more of a metaphor for a topic. Obviously, they represent the people in real life who are so dedicated to PC culture that they cry over the smallest infractions of anything politically correct. Fittingly, they are the children of PC Principal and Strong Woman, the 2 most politically correct figures in the entire show. The concept of personifying these people as a group of literal babies that cry over everything is pretty on brand for South Park, and they have been used in some pretty hilarious and creative ways.
Everything good here? Oh, are these PC babies?
If it weren't for the most recent seasons and specials, Mr. and Mrs. Black likely would have placed a lot lower in this list just because there wasn't much to their character. They were pretty normal parents to Tolkien and have shown in the past to care about him by helping him look and act more poor when he felt like an outcast due to being rich. However, they've played a much larger role in the most recent South Park, as Mr. Black partners with Randy to help him promote his weed business. When this falls through, Mr. Black takes what he learned about weed and creates his own farm directly across the street from Randy and ends up stealing his business away. It's pretty funny to see him do this to Randy, as it felt like someone was finally giving Randy a taste of his own medicine, since this is definitely something that he would do. This dynamic created some pretty hilarious moments throughout the season and culminated in the Streaming Wars specials, where they are finally able to set aside their differences to some degree to fight against a common enemy. Craig's dad, Mr. Tucker, has had some really interesting moments throughout the series. He is shown to be very supportive of his wife and fights to protect their privacy in the Magic Bush when she is caught changing by a drone, as previously mentioned. His biggest role comes in Tweak X Craig, where he experiences a very well-crafted character arc. When he thinks that Craig is gay and dating Tweak, he is initially very against the idea, discussing how it just wasn't accepted in his time. As the episode continues, it's clear that he is trying his hardest to understand and accept Craig for this, and it eventually culminates with him admitting to Craig that while he may not understand it, it doesn't make him love him any less, and that he will be there for him no matter what. This is quite a touching story, and watching this character arc felt incredibly real. This episode proved that his character is more complex than anyone would have imagined up to that point, and that he is truly a loving and caring father.
I want to be proud of you too. I like gay Craig. I love you. Here's $100.
Stan's sister Shelly has had so many funny moments throughout the show, being an OG character with a prominent role in many episodes. Though incredibly insecure and defensive to the point of being abusive to her little brother, she has proven in later episodes that she is much more than just her anger issues. She's willing to team up with Cartman and Cat Orgy to get back at her ex-boyfriend, who is 22, Shelly is 13 by the way. She shows her love for her little brother by trying to protect him from Trimp Boyette in preschool, and she even falls in love in Broadway Brodown. That one had a bit of a rough ending as Randy accidentally kills the boy that she fell in love with, but that's besides the point. Her rage has also provided a lot of funny moments throughout the show, especially in the earlier seasons when her character was much more aggressive. Starvin Marvin was the Ethiopian child the boys adopted after donating to one of those TV adopted child programs to get the free watch that comes with it. What they didn't realize is that he would literally be shipped to them and placed under their care. His initial episode from season 1 included a lot of funny moments, and I've always liked the mock African language that he uses. It's just kind of satisfying to listen to, I don't know why. His second appearance was in season 3 when he takes an alien spaceship that lands in his country to meet up with the boys again. He shows his selfless nature by using the spaceship to take his village to an alien planet where they can live much more comfortably. While his character doesn't say much and is pretty stoic, it's always a joy to see him.
Whoa, that was cool!
Heidi is a special case amongst these characters because she has had what is probably the most radical transformation of any character in the show. For a very long time, Heidi was a background character throughout much of the show, with her first important role coming when she hosts a slumber party in season 9's Margarine. Even then, her role was pretty limited, but that changed in season 20 when she quits social media and begins a relationship with Cartman. I have an entire video detailing their relationship and her transformation throughout, but I'll give the short version here. Initially, Heidi was incredibly kind and caring, doing whatever she could to help Cartman. Over time, however, she would begin to succumb to Cartman's gaslighting and manipulation to the point where she would become a near clone of him. This is when her character really takes a big hit because she becomes a worse and more unlikable version of Cartman. Eventually, she recognizes what has happened to her and she takes accountability, presumably returning to her normal self. We haven't gotten to see basically any Heidi since then, but who knows what the future holds. Her initial character was very likable and seemed to be even a good influence for Cartman, but as he got into her mind and she began changing, she lost most of what made her a good character, and because of that, it kind of balances out to a mid-tier character. Dougie is the second grade boy who seems to be pretty good friends with Butters. In his introduction, he was seen hanging out with Butters in the basement of the meteor shower party. This friendship with Butters would be further cemented when he becomes General Disarray, the evil sidekick of Professor Chaos, Butters' evil alter ego. This would become his main role in the show moving forward. For the most part, his character is that of a typical sidekick, doesn't really say or do much, but he has definitely had his moments, like in The Simpsons did it when he is constantly ruining Butters' evil plans by breaking the news to him that The Simpsons already did it.
Cool, it'll be just like on The Simpsons. Huh?
Lemmy Winks has never actually said anything in the show, because he's a gerbil, I'm pretty sure, but his character still manages to make me laugh. He was introduced when Mr. Garrison decides to follow the lyrics to the legendary Eminem song Fack. That song actually came out after this episode, but regardless. He becomes the hero in one of the most absurd plots the show has ever created, going on a Hobbit-style adventure to escape the body of Mr. Slave. His next major appearance would come when he has to fight to the death with his evil brother WikiLeaks, who is spreading secrets around the school. Though Lemmywinks himself doesn't say anything, the plot lines he was involved in are absolutely hilarious, and without his casual indifference to the situations, they wouldn't be the same. We also would have never gotten his extremely catchy theme song.
A great adventure is waiting for you ahead. Hurry onward, Lemmywinks, or you will soon be dead.
I debated breaking the super best friends up into each individual character, but I decided the only character prominent enough would be Jesus, so because of that, he is on this list separately as well. The idea behind the super best friends is hilarious to me, that all the prominent religious figures in the world are a team of superheroes fighting crime. Their appearances in the show are almost exclusively in banned episodes, which adds to the joke in my opinion. The banter between them always makes me laugh, and the fact that Seaman is included in the team for no reason other than for the rest of the team to make fun of his name is really the cherry on top.
Yeah, who would have activated her again?
I don't know, Seaman.
It's C-Man.
Strong Woman is the love interest of PC Principal, and similarly to him, as well as a few other characters on this list, she's more of a metaphor than anything. Obviously, she's meant to represent feminism and women's empowerment, and she does a great job at this role. She represents both the bad and the good in these movements, and is really the perfect encapsulation. Over time, she has developed her own character traits outside of the metaphorical ones, and all around she has become a pretty solid character. Principal Victoria is a good example of a consistently good character in this show. She takes her role as principal very seriously and has proven to actually care about the kids, like in Breast Cancer Show Ever when she gives Wendy a coded speech to encourage Hearst to stand up to Cartman and beat him up. She has some hilarious moments too, like when Cartman shows up to school in a very offensive costume, and her fix to it is to make him a ghost costume that ends up being equally offensive. She was replaced as principal in season 19 by PC Principal and decides to help Garrison and his running mate Caitlyn Jenner in order to find out why she was fired. Since season 19, she hasn't made any appearances outside of being a background character, but her time as principal produced many laughs for me. Kenny's parents have proven time and time again to be pretty horrible parents who care very little about their children and each other. They're abusive, impoverished drug addicts and dealers. They're horrible, but have consistently been some of the funnier parents in the show. When they decide they want a new child, Kenny does whatever it takes to prevent that from happening, and it leads to some hilarious, gross, and traumatic experiences for his father. In the Coon and Friends trilogy, it's revealed that the reason for Kenny's immortality is that they joined a cult back in the day solely because they provided free alcohol. In The Poor Kid, they are arrested and put on reality TV for being white trash and in trouble. Despite their questionable morals and ethics, their antics have provided a lot of entertainment throughout the years.
I'm white trash and I'm in trouble. All right, good. Now get in the car.
Daryl is really meant to be a representation of all conservative rednecks throughout the US. He does a great job at this, and all I have to say is, they took our germs. Jesus.
They took your job!
They took your jam! Took your jam!
While he may not be the most holy of priests, Father Maxey has always been a hilarious hyperbole of Christian ideals. He has been the focus of many great episodes, like in season 4 when he scares the kids into becoming obsessed with the church as a parody of the fear-mongering some Christians buy into. And who could forget Red Hot Catholic Love when he travels to the Vatican to solve the Catholic priest molestation scandal. It turns out he's the only priest in the world who wasn't molesting children, so at least he has that. Despite this, he is just as profane as everyone else in town, he just disguises it better. Mr. Slave was Mr. Garrison's boyfriend from season 6 to season 9 of South Park, and despite dating someone as insane as Mr. Garrison, he's actually a pretty level-headed and easygoing guy. Sure, he may have some rather questionable interests, but he's good at heart. He has provided some of the most disturbingly hilarious moments in the show, like the previously mentioned Lemmywinks plot and the iconic whore-off with Paris Hilton that ended with Paris Hilton entirely, consumed by him. He eventually got married to Big Gay Al, and they seem to have lived a happy life since then, even leading the charge in getting the meaning of a homophobic slur changed to mean annoying Harley riders. He still makes occasional appearances in the show, and you can bet that whenever he appears, laughs will follow. Bebe is Wendy's best friend, and she is your stereotypical cliquish girl that follows all the popular trends. She is most often used in contrast to Wendy, who is always more reluctant to follow along with whatever is popular. Her character was given more depth in Bebe's Boobs Destroy Society when she discusses with her mother that she doesn't want people to treat her differently just because of her looks, and that she cares about her intelligence. On the contrary, she also tried to kill Wendy after she tries to reveal the true ranking of the attractiveness of the boys. She ends up missing and accidentally kills Kenny in his own home. She also killed Kenny with a boomerang and proper condom use, so despite her questionable morality, she plays her role and is a very entertaining character. Skeeter was the owner of Skeeter's Bar, the main bar in the town of South Park. As of now, his bar has become Skeeter's Wine Bar, a slightly more hipster version of his previous bar that came when they gentrified that area of town in season 19. Skeeter has been the voice of many absurd movements throughout the show, like when he leads the movement to free Hat McCullough from prison, a man that did some pretty horrible things. He was also seen leading the counter-protest to the anti-Iraq war protesters and has a great duet with Randy. But undoubtedly, my favorite thing he has done that is a large part of his placement in this list comes in his first significant role in the show, when he is constantly ridiculing different people that come into the bar about how they don't take kindly to their types.
If you pandas are from mountainous areas of China and Tibet, how come you eat bamboo, which is prone to grow only in drier, more arid regions?
I don't have a lot to say about the woodland critters. They're adorable little animals that turned out to be Satan-worshipping demons in one of the best episodes in the whole show, genius juxtaposition, and a lot of funny moments. I really wish Chef's parents made more appearances in the show, because they are legitimately some of the funniest characters in the entire show. They've only been prominent in 2 episodes, but in the little screen time they've had, they have made me laugh harder than most of the characters above them. Their stories of the Loch Ness Monster asking them for Tree Fitty is one of my favorite jokes from the entire show. It legitimately makes me laugh every time, and their interactions between each other is comedy gold. If they had more screen time in the show, I'm sure I would have rated them much higher, but because of the lack of appearances, they'll remain here.
Well, it was about that time that I noticed this Girl Scout was about 8 stories tall and was a crustacean from the Plesiosaurus.
The Loch Ness Monster.
I said, damn it, monster, get off my lawn. I ain't giving you no Tree Fitty.
Nathan and Mimsy are pretty ridiculous characters. Being disabled himself and jealous of Jimmy and Timmy's popularity, Nathan is always plotting different ways to sabotage Jimmy and Timmy in whatever they're doing. Mimsy kinda just follows along for the ride, acting as Nathan's cliche idiot sidekick. They are incredibly Looney Tunes-esque in their attempts, and this is no accident as they are clearly inspired in both their design and actions by the Looney Tunes characters Rocky and Muggsy. Aside from their zany shenanigans, they're actually really well written, with Nathan giving some pretty insightful theories into advertising and PC culture in season 19, as well as Mimsy occasionally revealing that he is actually much more intelligent than everyone thinks. Santa is one of the true OGs of South Park, since he appeared in the original viral short, Jesus vs. Santa. His first major role in the real show, and undoubtedly his most iconic, is in Red Sleigh Down, when his sleigh is shot down over Baghdad and he is tortured by his captors. Santa is hilarious in this episode, trying to stay as jolly as possible, but eventually breaking and taking out everyone in a mile radius. He also helps Stan take out the woodland critters, he is the most powerful fighter in all of Imagination Land, and most recently, he did a couple bumps with Jesus. To say he's a versatile character would be an understatement. Ah, the goth kids. Everyone's favorite anti-conformists, cigarette-smoking, coffee-drinking, miserable children. To them, all of life is meaningless, there is nothing but sadness and pain, and to be a non-conformist and hang out with them, you have to dress and act exactly like them. They are truly the embodiment of the goth spirit and have a hatred of emos and vamp kids. Every time they're included, they bring a lot of entertainment, and there are several episodes that revolve around them. My personal favorite is when Stan joins them after his heart is broken, but they have also taken on the vamp kids, the emos, they've hung out with Edgar Allan Poe, and even helped Mysterion find the weakness in Cthulhu. They are perfectly crafted to parody people like this, and they always make me laugh.
If you want to be one of the nonconformists, all you have to do is dress just like us and listen to the same music we do.
Okay.
If you'll remember from the beginning, I said that 2 celebrities will be included on this list because their characters are in several episodes and are distinct from their real-life counterparts. Saddam Hussein shows up several times throughout the series, and his relationship with Satan has always been one of my favorite hell-based plotlines. It's pretty funny that this show has enough plotlines in hell that I can point out my favorite, but anyways. His relationship with Satan was introduced in the South Park movie and continues in season 4. He is incredibly manipulative and controlling of Satan, and Satan continually falls for him despite this. He is eventually sent to heaven as punishment since heaven is filled with Mormons. He makes several other cameos throughout the series, like when he's making weapons in heaven and when he is caught controlling the Prime Minister of Canada. His character is always amusing, not only because he's so obviously horrible, but because for whatever reason they decided to make him in the same style as the Canadians in South Park, even having the same accent and using the same phrases for seemingly no reason at all. It really just seals the deal on the comedy in this character. Would you look at that? The two celebrity characters are right next to each other on the list. This wasn't intentional, but it is fitting. Kanye is an example of a celebrity in South Park that is incredibly accurate and true to the original, while also being a pretty distinctly unique character. His misunderstandings of the fish sticks joke is exactly how you would expect Kanye to react to a situation like that. In fact, in real life, he still doesn't actually get the joke to this day.
You eat fish sticks because I have skinny jeans on.
His embrace of the gay fish lifestyle at the end of the episode, along with his beautifully performed song Gay Fish, which is a parody of Heartless, makes this episode an instant classic. Then a few seasons later, he returns to do the same thing even better in The Hobbit, where he is continuously defending his beautiful wife Kim Kardashian because she is definitely not a hobbit. Watching his slow realization that she is in fact a literal hobbit, all while he is still publicly defending her, makes for an even better experience than his other appearance, and even includes a parody of Bound 2 that is also quite beautiful. Regardless of all that, one thing is certain, he will forever be everyone's favorite gay fish.
That movie is just loosely based on her television show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which is a show about short, loud little people living in a fantasy world. Hold up. Bitch, if you're the Hobbit, you need to let me know right now, because I'm making a fool of myself out here.
Tweek's parents are some of the more irresponsible parents in the show, which is saying a lot since the show is full of incompetent parents. They are constantly giving insane amounts of coffee to their child, putting him in a constant state of fear and anxiety. Even worse, it was revealed in The Stick of Truth that they are literally lacing their coffee with meth, meaning that these parents are knowingly giving their child meth and don't see an issue with that. Their incompetence has led to some hilarious moments though, like in Child Abduction Isn't Funny, when they decide the best way to teach Tweek to be safe is to explain the likelihood of him being abducted from his bedroom, then that night convince him that there is an abductor in his bedroom and get him to open the door, then pretend that they were the abductor waiting on the other side of the door. And of course they explain in graphic detail what would have happened to him if there were really a child abductor. Incredibly messed up situation, but undoubtedly one of my favorite moments from the show. Tweek's dad has also been shown to be a ruthless businessman willing to take advantage of children if it will make him more money in the episode Gnomes. Despite their general horrible parenting, they were at least supportive of Tweek when he began dating Craig, and because of how over the top and extreme they are as parents, they are absolutely hilarious. Mephisto is an absolute OG in the show, playing a huge role in Season 1 throughout several episodes. He's a genetic engineer and is best known for his insane creations, of which he seems to have a particular interest in making animals with multiple asses. He has had countless funny moments, most often through his failure to recognize the morally questionable things he's doing, as well as his overall indifference to them. Kevin seems to be his assistant, and he's not really a character because he doesn't say or do anything, but in a way that's what makes him so funny. He's just a weird looking little guy, and no one really knows why he's there, but he always is, just kind of standing there. Mephisto played a huge role in discovering who Cartman's father was in Season 1 and 2, and has had several other important roles throughout the series. He's also a proud member of NAMBLA. What? Oh, not that NAMBLA. I meant the North American Marlon Brando Lookalike Association. While his character hasn't played a role in the show in years, his character has always been entertaining, and I hope one day they bring him back. Scott Malkinson essentially functions as a punching bag for the other 4th graders. They are always making fun of him and very rarely interact with him outside of that context. He kind of fills a similar role to He Who Shall Not Be Named in the early episodes, but he does it much better. He has diabetes, as he will be quick to remind everyone, and that kind of has become the main trait of his character, as it's always mentioned when the boys are making fun of him. That's why it made sense when the first Scott-centered plotline came after a girl with diabetes moves to South Park, and Scott quickly takes a liking to her. This is when we see a bit of evolution in Scott's character, as he realizes that this girl is much more than her diabetes and it's not her personality. She encourages him to begin thinking in a similar way, and the episode ends with Scott entertaining a change in lifestyle. There hasn't been a ton of Scott Malkinson since, with his largest role coming in post-COVID specials, and it proved that even if Scott Malkinson changes, the boys will likely never view him much differently, as to them he will always be, oh, I'm Scott Malkinson, I have diabetes. One of my favorite gags in Season 1 of South Park was Jimbo and Ned's strategy for hunting animals with restrictions. Their ingenious plan to murder as many animals as possible was to shout, "It's coming right for us," before taking the shot, making it self-defense. Jimbo and Ned's obsession with all things gun, explosive, and alcohol related surely would make them an issue for the ATF, but it also makes them incredibly funny. Their hyperbolization of people who hunt for sport is so funny, portraying them with a desire to simply kill animals and nothing more. They are also much more than this, discussing their time in the Vietnam War that led to Ned's injuries, running a public access show that is literally just called Huntin' and Killin', and being shown to have a gambling problem, betting on everything from elementary football games to the boxing match between Satan and Jesus. These characters have endless potential, and while they don't show up as often anymore, I'm glad they've stuck around for this long. This is Kyle. Not that Kyle, it's his cousin Kyle. While cousin Kyle has made only a few appearances throughout the show, he has left some long-lasting impressions in those times. His hyper-stereotypical Jewish nature is so hilarious as he is just consistently pathetic throughout his appearances. He's annoying in the sense that you know you would be annoyed if you were around him, but hilarious to watch other people get annoyed by him, which is how you write an intentionally annoying character perfectly. He also played a pretty large part in the game The Fractured But Whole, where again he had so many entertaining moments. All around, he is perfectly written for the purpose of his character, and despite his few appearances, he is incredibly memorable.
Concentration is the key to succeeding in my class.
Maybe we'll have to send him to concentration camp. Ah! Damn it, damn it, damn it! Cartman!
Who would have thought a talking piece of poo would end up being a pretty great character? Mr. Hanky loves to spread Christmas cheer and has some great moments. He has some hilarious and insane songs and is always funny when he's included. We get to learn a bit more about his character when we meet the rest of his family and understand his unfortunate living situation. Despite being cancelled in the more recent seasons, his character has always been a joy, and to this day I'm still riding along the Poo-Choo train.
Poo-choo train's laying down its tracks with a poo-choo all the way and back.
The Son of God himself is a very unique character. Originally starring in his own public access show competing with Jimbo and Ned's Huntin' and Killin', his character has seen a large transformation over the years. He's a bit of a pacifist, always trying to avoid confrontation when possible, but he's not afraid to throw down when it's necessary, and we love him for it. His appearances with the Super Best Friends is always hilarious, and all around he's a pretty solid guy and cares about helping people. This image was shaken up a bit when it was revealed that he was doping to produce his miracles and the public turns against him. Though defensive at first, he eventually understands that it's more important to inspire and help people while leaving the credit up for interpretation. His character has been around since before the show even started, and he's only gotten better with age. For a very long time, Officer Barbrady was nothing more than an idiotic cop who is trying his best despite his mental deficiencies. His incompetency has created some of the most memorable plots throughout the series, like in Chicken Lover when he has to learn how to read to stay as a police officer. We see the much darker side of his character in season 19 when he gets laid off for being incompetent. This is when we learn that he's struggling to get by, sharing memories of his deceased wife and his struggle to afford the medicine for his dog. This adds a tragic side to what was originally thought to be a generic dumb character, and it really adds to his likability in my eyes. Though he isn't seen as often nowadays, he will always be hilarious when he's on screen through his sheer stupidity alone. Big Gay Al was introduced in an episode that was incredibly progressive for the time. He's portrayed as an extremely stereotypical gay man that runs a home for runaway gay animals. He has always been an incredibly positive and wholesome character with very few moments that can take away from the greatness of him. An argument could be made for him being one of the best people in the entire show, and he has proved it time and time again with his carefree and joyous attitude. He has been the victim of discrimination throughout his time in the show, and despite this, he has pushed through and proven that these complaints are not valid. Because of his rare wholesome nature and overall positivity in a show where there aren't many positive characters, he sticks out as a unique quality character.
Little fella, how are you doing today?
Fine, how are you?
I'm super, thanks for asking.
Tolkien is another character that seems to be genuinely good for the most part. We get to see into his struggles when he feels like an outsider due to being richer than all the kids at school. In the past, his character was most often used as, well, the token black kid, just to set up jokes. But in the more recent seasons, and especially in the specials, he has really found a way into near main character status. He has been consistently funny throughout all of his time on the show, whether he's being used as a token character to set up jokes or he is interacting with the rest of the boys. His character is utilized to its fullest extent and is perfect for setting up some hilarious storylines. And don't forget, it's Tolkien, not Token. If you thought it was Token, you are part of the problem.
Token, how many times do we have to go through this? You're black, you can play bass.
I'm getting sick of your stereotypes.
Be as sick as you want, just give me a goddamn bass line.
PC Principal was originally introduced as more of an antagonist than anything. It made sense, he represented PC culture, which in a sense was an enemy of South Park. But over time, as they recognized that he would just have to be accepted, his character has changed a lot. He has shown different sides to his character that were previously unseen, relaxing his previous standards and being a bit less judgmental. Regardless, his character has always been the perfect embodiment of PC culture and the extreme nature that can be seen in its worst aspects. He is one of the most necessary characters in modern South Park since he's the personification of everything South Park has seemed to stand against for so long. Despite this, the show has recognized and embraced the importance of some of the aspects of the PC movement while still being able to poke fun at the more extreme parts, and because of that, PC Principal is one of the most interesting characters in the show. Gerald is a very unique character in that he has had a rather dramatic shift. For a long time, he was mostly a background character as Sheila, his wife, took the spotlight. He was a pretty normal, successful lawyer. He would slowly be utilized over time in episodes like Two Guys Naked in a Hot Tub, where he plays the role of a sensitive and insecure lover after sharing an intimate moment with Randy in the hot tub. We would learn that he has a gambling problem after losing everything in Redman's Greed, see the most bizarre side of him when he decides to get reconstructive surgery to become a dolphin, and learn of his past struggles with drug addiction after he relapses on cheesing. He was one of the obviously more intelligent parents, but he was just generally a bit strange, always revealing his bizarre past and interests. It was always entertaining to see Gerald, and he was undoubtedly one of the best parent characters in the show. This was until Season 20 reared its ugly head and did a lot of damage to his character. Season 20 had a heavy focus on Gerald and the Skank Hunt storyline as he mercilessly trolled the internet. While he definitely had some pretty funny moments throughout the storyline, seeing this side of him definitely changed my opinion on his character. Previously, it was mostly his innocence and his weird hobbies that made him entertaining, but for his character to all of a sudden become a pretty horrible person just for laughs was jarring, and it definitely affected his placement. Maybe if that season didn't happen, he would be more highly rated, but as his character stands now, he's still incredibly funny and entertaining, just not as much so. Forget about strong woman. Sharon is undoubtedly the strongest woman in the show due to the fact that she has to put up with Randy for so many years now. Being married to the most obsessive and erratic man in the show cannot be easy, and she has proven that to be the case many times. They have split up a few times throughout the show, but they have always gotten back together every time. Her character really functions as the anti-Randy. She is there to attempt to bring Randy back to reality and control the madness that is the Marsh family. In the early seasons, she often followed along with the idiotic ideas of the rest of the town, but as the show progressed, she has become one of the few voices of reason in the show, actually taking serious things serious and pointing out the stupidity in everyone else's actions. Though she's been a mainstay in so many episodes, she actually has very few plots where she is the main character. The most distinct one comes in Cream Fraiche when she decides not to entertain Randy's new cooking obsession and spends time alone with a shake weight. She learns some important lessons from the shake weight and eventually returns to Randy with her knowledge to put it to use. She has proven to care about her family despite some more questionable methods like hiding the bodies of the people she thought Stan murdered. All around, she is the perfect rational counterpart to Randy, and she fits her role pretty perfectly. Beelzebub, the Dark Prince, the Fallen Angel, all pretty intimidating names for the King of Hell. Despite his status as ruler of all evil, he's actually a pretty cool dude. At his core, he's an emotionally vulnerable and complex individual who just wants to be free of his confines. He has had countless funny plotlines, whether it be his relationship with Saddam, his quest to throw the best Sweet 16 ever, or even helping Stan kill the Canadian Devil. He is genuinely one of the kindest and most caring characters in the show, which only adds to the hilarity of his character due to the irony. His last appearance came when he decides to help in the fight against Man-Bear-Pig. Man-Bear-Pig gets the better of him and manages to fatally injure him. In one final twist of irony, due to his heroic sacrifice, Satan is accepted into heaven. We haven't seen him since, but we can be sure that if he does reappear, his character will be just as hilarious and ironic as it's always been.
Hello? God? It's, Satan.
This may be a pretty controversial opinion because I know a lot of people love Clyde. Don't get me wrong, Clyde is a great character who has his own unique personality traits, but I can never get over the feeling that he kinda just feels like a not as good Craig. I know, I'm sorry. Clyde is known for his nasally voice and constant crying, often being labeled as a crybaby by the kids in the show. He's unfortunately vulnerable to following the trends and whatever the cool thing is, and has proven to be narcissistic at times, like in The List when he develops his entire personality around his looks after discovering he was ranked at number 1 on the list of most attractive boys. He's also labeled as the fat kid after Cartman is arrested and no longer in South Park, assaulted by Cartman and Coon and Friends, and falls in love with Lisa Berger after seeing her Photoshop pictures. We also see him experience trauma in real time after his mother dies and blames it on him, so I'm sure that didn't help with his issues. He also had one of the most hilariously random moments in the whole show after this insane outburst defending Cartman that is never explained or mentioned again.
You, sir, mocked Cartman before, yet you two sit here demanding answers. Now damn you, let him speak!
Thank you, Clyde.
I don't have a ton to say about Liu Kim. He's a complete stereotype of a Chinese person and plays the role to hilarious effect. He was even forced to build a great wall around the entire city and defend it from Mongolians. He also had an all-out war with the Japanese store owner that moves into town, revealing that he isn't even Chinese at all and that he's a white guy that has multiple personality disorder. He is genuinely perfectly written and is as good of a character as he could be. He makes me laugh every single time he makes an appearance, and because of that, he is very highly rated.
I'm just a normal person like all you. I eat a rice and I drive a really slow just like the rest of you. I'm not a stereotype.
When it comes to characters satirizing groups, Detective Harris is one of the best. He is the lead detective over at South Park PD and is a huge proponent of police brutality and racism, and he has had so many hilarious moments that it would be hard to quantify. His first big role came in The Jeffersons, where he revealed how the police target and frame rich black men surely out of spite. He has followed a path of police incompetency throughout the entirety of his time on the show, listening to Cartman's psychic abilities and ignoring the actual evidence right in front of him in Cartman's incredible gift, blowing off Kyle when Ike is being assaulted by his teacher, and even going as far as to perform a prostitution sting operation by dressing up as a prostitute to catch those trying to utilize their services. The only problem is that he would actually act as a prostitute before arresting the people, taking it so far with one pimp that he falls in love with him, marries him, and moves to Switzerland for a full year before finally arresting him. He truly mastered the art of the long con. His commitment to his job and simultaneous complete incompetence is what makes his character so hilarious, and he is the perfect hyperbole of the justice system in America.
We've arrested a black man who was snooping around the old Jefferson estate. Did you choke him? Yes. Did you shoot him? Yes. So what's the problem?
What is there to say about Towley? He's a talking towel whose sole objectives are to provide tips on towel usage and get high. As the creators have said, he was literally designed to be the worst character ever, and by fulfilling that design, they created the perfectly horrible character. A lot of people think I don't like Towley because many of the episodes he's in I have ranked low, but it's often not his fault. They just put him in episodes where the other plotline is bad enough to drag the episode down. Thanks to Towley, I will never forget to bring the towel anywhere I go, and for that he gets a high placement. Timmy was a fan favorite from the moment he was introduced. He doesn't say much, just his name really, but his excited attitude about everything and genuine goodwill is infectious. Something that is very underrated in South Park is their representation of the disabled. Both Jimmy and Timmy are perfect examples because their disability is never the focus of their characters. They're just normal characters who happen to be disabled, and they've never really been treated any differently for it. This is how you do representation correctly, and if you want to see a much more in-depth look at this, I highly recommend Kitty Monk's video on the topic. Timmy is a genuinely good guy, with the only blemish in his morality showing when Jimmy is introduced and begins getting all of the attention. Despite this, they would become friends, and Timmy has done so many good things, like taking the disabled turkey and training him, and helping Jimmy stop doing steroids for the Special Olympics. Timmy is as positive as it gets, and whenever he appears, he is sure to bring good vibes.
Timmy!
When it comes to enabling parents, there are none that compare to Miss Cartman. For the majority of her time on the show, she has been the reason that Cartman has been able to get away with everything he has. She is a single mother with a devil child, so I know it can't be easy, but she has done Cartman no favors when it comes to raising him correctly. She is a complete pushover and gives into his every need. In the times when she should be parenting, she is often off doing drugs and hooking up with men. There have been times when she's tried to act as an actual parent, but at certain points it's just too little too late. Her only real success came when she hired the dog whisperer to train Cartman, however she immediately ruined everything by reverting to her old ways the moment he left. In the recent seasons and specials, we've seen a pretty large shift in her attitude, and it seems like she may be done with putting up with Cartman's BS, but if history has shown us anything, it's pretty unlikely that this will change anything. The fact that she has such a large part in creating the monster that is Eric Cartman is enough to put her pretty high up, but her antics outside of her parenting are what make her such a great character. This placement is actually unintentionally perfect since Miss Broflovsky is the exact opposite extreme of Miss Cartman. While Miss Cartman is negligent of her child, Miss Broflovsky is incredibly overbearing and protective to the point that she forgets about the child that she is fighting for. She is truly the OG Karen with too many essential roles in the show to count. She leads the war against Canada in the movie to prevent profanity from being shown in movies. She demands the school play be changed from a nativity scene. She creates an entire event to celebrate Nurse Gollum's disability despite her not wanting it in the first place. The list goes on and on. She also has some of the most hilarious catchphrases and lines in the show. Though her Karen attitude is seen far less frequently nowadays, she's still a staple of Kyle's family dynamic and in the show as a whole.
You're such a fat ass, Cartman. At least I'm not a stupid Jew. What?
Mr. and Mrs. Stotch are arguably the worst parents in the entire show, but man is it funny. They are often abusive, both physically and mentally, to their poor child Butters, and their immediate reaction to him doing basically anything is to ground him. They have no concept of what actions are deserving of punishment, grounding him for doing a face in the school pictures despite him clearly not doing any face, being forced into liposuction surgery, dating Paris Hilton, running away from Paris Hilton, and many, many more. They have proven to care very little about their son, being willing to sell him as a pet to Paris Hilton for a large check, and even making him mine for coal to try to pay his way out of it despite knowing his effort was futile. They are also absolutely insane, shown when Butters catches his dad cheating on his mom with men, and his mom decides to attempt to kill Butters before doing the same to herself. They also tried to bring him back to life after he faked jumping off a building by burying him in an Indian burial ground. They are horrible parents, absolutely insane, and care very little for their son, but they are absolutely hilarious in doing all of it.
Well, Butters, how'd it go? Did you dig up $200 million worth of coal?
Well, no, not quite.
Oh, well, too bad. Miss Hilton did raise the money, so you'll be going off with her.
Wendy is a true activist, someone who is willing to fight for the causes she believes in, whether it makes her popular or not. She was also Stan's longtime girlfriend, which is ironic because Stan's idea of activism is the exact opposite, but we'll get there. Her commitment to what she believes is right has led to plenty of awesome moments throughout the show, and she really shines when she is at odds with Cartman. What happens when you take two people so set in their beliefs that nothing can change their minds and give them opposite viewpoints? You get a Wendy and Cartman episode, and they are always great. She was involved in one of my favorite moments in the entire show when she finally got sick of Cartman's bullying and beats him to a bloody pulp in front of the entire school. While she may be disliked by many of her peers for her strong beliefs, she is perfect in her role and I love her character for it. Craig started out as a troublemaker, flipping the bird to anyone and everyone and permanently stuck in the front office. He was always incredibly deadpan and stoic, which just made his disregard for everyone around him that much funnier. He expresses his admiration of Cartman faking Tourette's, repeating several times how if he could say the things Cartman was saying, he would be so happy. His first major role was in Pandemic 1 and 2, when he gets roped into one of the boys' adventures and ends up in the Peruvian wilderness. His negative attitude and apathy to the entire situation makes this episode hilarious, as he seems to be the only one thinking with any amount of logic. He lays out why no one at school likes them straight to their face and reminds them that they have very poor decision-making skills and never learn their lesson. These episodes really showed how great his character can be as a contrast to the rest of the boys, and from then on he had much more prominent role in the show. In more recent seasons, he has come close to main character status, and his relationship with Tweek is one of the only functional and healthy relationships in the entire show. He's real, he's raw, he's not afraid to tell it like it is, and all of these traits make him an extremely entertaining character.
That's a shock. I decided to follow you guys, and now I'm in Land of the Giants Lost World.
When I think of characters that are just plain funny, Mr. Mackey is one of the first that comes to mind. He's the school counselor, and as is a trait with most of the adults in the show, is pretty incompetent. He tries his best, but is often walked all over by the people above him. This is particularly evident when PC Principal comes into power, and he is deathly afraid of challenging anything he says. His memorable moments are endless, like when he is committed to setting up IntelliLink in school despite it being a complete failure, when they dive into his psyche in Inception, his short relationship with Miss Chokesondik, and his foray into the hippie lifestyle. Despite all of this, his most memorable trait is his iconic cadence. His voice alone carries him incredibly high in the entertainment factor, and it is so distinct and truly never gets old. Thanks to him, I will never forget the dangers of temptation such as drugs and alcohol, because drugs are bad, okay?
As for drugs, well, drugs are bad. You shouldn't do drugs. Okay, that about wraps up my introduction. Now, are there any questions?
It's hard not to feel bad for Tweek. Dude is force-fed meth-laced coffee by his parents, and it seems like he is always just one cup away from snapping and absolutely losing it. Despite this, he is shown to be a good kid who is just a product of an unfortunate parenting situation. His constant frazzled state is incredibly memorable, and it doesn't help that it seems like the objective of everyone around him is to stress him out even more. My favorite Tweek moment is one I already mentioned, when his parents elevate his anxiety to insane levels by staging a break-in as a lesson and immediately send him to bed as if it's no big deal. His relationship with Craig has proven to be one of the only times where he feels any kind of comfort, and it's really wholesome to see this kid who has been basically abused his entire life find peace in a loving relationship. His paranoia and delusions have proven to be one of the funniest character traits in the show, and because of that, he creates endless laughs. I hope at some point they give the kid a break though. You know, I bet if he were watching this right now, he'd be freaking out at my placement of him, as putting him this high might create some expectations that he could never fulfill. As he would say,
"Oh man, that is way too much pressure!"
I mean, he's just so cute. Look at him. Whenever he talks in his babbling baby voice, it's just, oh my, just look at him. Look at him riding the little dog. I mean, oh, he's just so cute. Jimmy has proven to be an incredibly versatile character. The idea of his character alone is pretty hilarious, giving the kid with a pretty severe stutter a job that requires very specific timing and delivery in stand-up comedy. As mentioned before though, they tackle disability really well with him, since he doesn't let his disabilities get in the way of his passion, and he is incredibly successful as a comic. His funny moments throughout the show are endless, with many plots focused on him. He is innocent enough to not realize that he has joined a gang when he joins the Crips, assuming that they are actually crippled people like himself. He even puts an end to the Bloods and Crips rivalry through his comedy. He came up with the legendary fish sticks joke that drove Kanye insane. He went on a crazy journey to get rid of his erection before the talent show. He does steroids for the Special Olympics and experiences severe roid rage. And he plays a huge role at the end of season 19 as the head of the school paper, fighting against censorship and advertisements. He is a hilarious dude whether he's trying to be or not, and he is a personal favorite of mine.
Yo, don't be dissing my dog. They're my fit.
I miss Chef so much. It's crazy that at this point we have had more South Park without Chef than with him. He's just so memorable, it's impossible to think of the show without thinking of him. He has proven to be incredibly caring towards the children. He was always there to help them or explain anything to them that they needed. He was really like a father figure to them, as none of their real fathers have proven to be very good parents. He did what he thought was best for the children, and although it was sometimes a bit misguided, he was really the only competent adult in the show. He was always teaching the boys important lessons and was there for them when no one else was. His habit of singing a beautiful song for the boys was incredibly wholesome, despite the fact that he would often get caught up in the moment and begin to sing about his favorite hobby of lovemaking. He always had the right intentions though, and was truly selfless when it came down to it. It's a shame what happened to his character, and the story of his voice actor Isaac Hayes is tragic, but as Kyle said at the end of his last episode, I choose to remember Chef for the advice he gave and his positive attitude in the face of adversity. He was a one-of-a-kind character on the show, and because of that, he will always be remembered as one of the best.
Have you ever heard of the Emancipation Proclamation?
I don't listen to hip-hop.
Mr. Garrison is just the worst, but I mean that in the best way. I'm considering making a video about him and his insane character arc throughout the show, so I'll leave this part somewhat brief. His character is the perfect embodiment of extremism and the absurdity that comes along with it. It doesn't matter what issue he's discussing, he will always pick the most extreme viewpoint on that topic that you could have. He is really your textbook South Park character, blatantly offensive and absurd in an effort to make fun of whatever extremist idea he believes in that day. He really is kind of a microcosm for the show itself. I think an argument could be made for him being in the top 3 funniest characters in the show just because of how brash and offensive his tendencies are. I genuinely think that he has made me laugh harder than even most of the characters above him on this list. His one-liners are without a doubt the best in the show since he just says the most insane things on the regular. The best way I could describe him is that he feels like a mix of Cartman and Randy. He has a similar obsessive attitude to Randy, but his obsessions are motivated in selfishness and ignorance in a way that I would consider very Cartman-esque. Like I said, I am thinking of doing a psychological deep dive into his character, so I'll leave it at that for now. But when it comes to hilarious characters, you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone on the level of Mr. Garrison.
You're the retarded offspring of 5 monkeys having butt sex with a fish squirrel. Congratulations.
Out of the main boys, Kyle is definitely the most complicated. He holds strong beliefs about what is right and wrong. He is often extremely emotionally driven, causing him to do things that may seem right to him, but end up being the wrong thing to do. He's very empathetic, and because of this, he is easily manipulated into making the wrong choices. The perfect example of this is in Crack Baby Athletic Association, where he joins Cartman in hosting Crack Baby basketball. He is completely aware that what he's doing is wrong, so he spends the entire episode looking for different ways to justify what he's doing from a moral standpoint. This is the difference between him and any of the other kids, since none of the other kids would even try to justify it. His moral compass is strong, but his actions are easily influenced. One thing that is special about him is that he is not afraid to throw hands when it comes down to it, and that has led to a lot of funny interactions, especially with Cartman. Of course, where Kyle really shines is in his relationship with Cartman. He hates Cartman probably more than anyone else because Cartman is inherently a representation of everything that he hates. The fact that they are almost always together has led to some of the most memorable interactions in the entire show. They are constantly going at each other, and it seems like it will go on this way for as long as the show lasts. The Cartman-Kyle dynamic is one of the most important dynamics in the show, and it works in almost every topic the show could possibly cover. They truly struck gold early on in the show with Kyle's character, and as he continues to grow and evolve, he has only gotten better with time.
You guys! Oh my god, you guys! What, Doughboy? I was just...
In the early seasons of the show, Stan and Kyle were extremely similar. So much so that by the end of season 5, they planned to kill off Kyle entirely. They decided against it, and as the show has progressed, they have both developed their own distinct character traits. Now, Stan is the opposite of Kyle in a sense. Where Kyle is likely to do the wrong things for the right reasons, Stan has been shown to do the right things for the wrong reasons. There have been several times when he has become an activist for a good cause or done good things, not because he thinks it's right, but because it makes him look good. Stan has a hint of performance activism in him where he will jump on a cause just because he likes the idea of being liked by everyone. His motivations in his actions tend to be a lot more selfish. In a similar way to how Cartman makes Kyle a better character, the same can be said about Kyle with Stan. Some of Stan's most memorable moments come in his moments with Kyle. Their dynamic is unique because they really are best friends, and despite their fallouts and differences, they always come back to each other. Some of my favorite episodes of all time follow this dynamic, like Guitar Queero, which follows Stan and Kyle as they become Guitar Hero superstars, only for Stan to turn his back on Kyle at the opportunity to get to the next level. Eventually, Stan acknowledges his mistakes and they make up to achieve their goals together. Another one of my favorite episodes is the two-part You're Getting Old story, which follows Stan as he begins to grow up and become depressed and cynical. It strains his relationships with all his friends to the point where they ditch him entirely, and he continues to sink deeper into his depression. These episodes are incredibly dark and sad, and it creates a certain relatability within Stan that is matched in few other characters. This is also seen when he gets his heart broken by Wendy and again falls into depression, joining with the goth kids. As is the case with most Stan storylines, he eventually recognizes the error in his ways and returns. Stan is one of the more relatable characters in the show since he is deeply flawed. His character arcs are incredible and keep me invested, and because of that, he will remain as one of the best.
What do you think of Cozy FM's Halloween hunt so far?
This one time, like 8 months ago, I saw 2 guys kissing in a park, and that was the gayest thing I'd ever seen until I saw the Cozy FM Halloween hunt.
Kenny has very little dialogue in the show that is understandable, and in more recent seasons, his appearances have become fewer as he has been relegated to near background character status. But despite this, he is still one of my favorite characters. In the few instances where we get to see Kenny's true character, he has proven that he is one of the most likable characters in the show. Despite his vulgar language and obsession with naughty things, he is one of the most genuine and good people in the show. He has sacrificed himself for the well-being of others many times. In the movie, he was willing to return to hell so that everything could be normal on Earth. He electrocuted himself to turn the power back on at the hospital when they were trying to find out who Cartman's dad is, and he even jumped into a pit of spikes to stop Cthulhu from ending the world. As Mysterion, he has shown to care deeply about his little sister, working long hours and lying to his parents just to be able to make her life a little better in their broken home. He stopped bullies from picking on her and comforted her when they were placed in foster care. And he does all this with no recognition, since she doesn't know that he is Mysterion and no one ever remembers his deaths. He has experienced more trauma than anyone else, being brutally killed dozens of times, and yet is still so kind and caring that he's willing to do these things for someone like Cartman, who has repeatedly stated that he hates Kenny. Now that I think of it, he's kind of like Jesus in a way, taking his never-ending torture and abuse even for the worst people. I wonder if that was intentional. Well, anyways, though he is incredibly vulgar and hedonistic at times, he is one of the few truly good people in the show, and his placement in this list is absolutely justified. Oh, poor Butters. He is in a close second to Kenny when it comes to kids who have been through a lot. As I discussed, he has the worst parents ever, and he has experienced so many traumatic things I could make a whole other video just recounting all of his trauma. It's made even worse by his incredibly wholesome and innocent attitude, as he is another genuinely good kid who is always put in unfortunate circumstances. His character is a case study into how to make trauma funny, because while you feel bad for him every time, you can't help but laugh because they have conditioned you to think, of course it happened to Butters. He's consistently taken advantage of and manipulated by everyone around him, and especially Cartman. Butters is so naive and caring that it's hard for him to believe that there are bad people, which is why Cartman targets Butters so often to help with his schemes. The Cartman and Butters dynamic has created some of my favorite episodes, and it is almost guaranteed that when they are together, it'll be a great episode. His naivety is also taken advantage of by the writers often, as he ends up in situations where he is completely clueless of the fact that his actions are wrong, which leads to things like him becoming one of the most successful pimps in Colorado despite not realizing what he's actually doing or the moral implications his actions have. His innocence is a thing of beauty in a show where every character has been corrupted, and he is the only kid left that truly still feels like a kid. He is an exceptionally funny character and will forever be one of my favorites.
I don't think I'm very happy. I always fall asleep to the sound of my own screams.
Oh, Randy. Randy has arguably become the face of South Park, especially in the last few seasons where he has basically been the main character. There's a reason he's a fan favorite. He is the perfect obsessive idiot. Johnny Two Cellos has a fantastic video on the evolution of Randy that I highly recommend you check out. And I don't suggest watching the Nerdstalgic video that essentially stole Johnny's entire video but somehow made it worse. Anyways, Randy has had some of the most iconic and hilarious moments throughout the entire show. His obsessive and addictive personality mixed with his sheer stupidity makes him a character that is nearly impossible to match when it comes to laughs. He has been shown to have a lot of insecurities and regrets that drive his insane obsessions, and his willingness to go to the most extreme lengths to fulfill these obsessions is what makes him so special. Everything that could be said about Randy has already been said, so I'll just mention some of my favorite moments from him. His obsession with baseball fights and the losing edge is probably my favorite Randy storyline ever. His outcast status after he says an incredibly dumb answer on Wheel of Fortune is classic. His continued lying to the space police that eventually gets Earth blocked from interacting with the entire galaxy is underrated. His cure to alcoholism coming by way of miracle from the Virgin Mary was perfectly done. His stint as a celebrity chef was legendary. I could literally go on for hours recounting his best and funniest moments, but you get the point. I know many people's view of Randy has soured over the course of the Tegrity Farms storyline, and while I agree that they have definitely overdone it at this point, I still think that he is hilarious, and I could not imagine placing him any lower than this. When it comes to straight up comedic characters, he is perfect.
Hey, Bat Dad. I didn't hear no bell.
Well, who didn't see that coming?
What can I even say about Cartman? I've made 3 full videos about Cartman and the intricacies of his character, and despite this, I still feel like there is so much to say about him. To put it simply, Eric Cartman is South Park. He is the most important character in the show, and it is not even close. Every other character in this list could stop being in the show, and while it may not be quite the same, it will still feel like South Park. Cartman is quite simply irreplaceable. He is one of the most horrible and evil characters ever created, and yet he is still one of the single funniest characters ever created. I really do not have a lot to say about Cartman because he is quite simply perfect. Let me say it again because I don't think you guys understand. He is written to be the most horrible, unlikable, evil character in history, and because of that, he is easily one of the funniest characters of all time. The skill it takes in writing a character that is so awful everyone loves him is indescribable, and he is incredibly psychologically complex and yet instantly funny to anyone watching the show. I'll make a bold claim and say he is one of the most well-written characters ever. Every single thing he has ever done can be explained through analyzing his character, his traumas, his circumstances, literally anything. He does exactly what he is designed to do and always manages to exceed expectations with his awfulness and hilarity. There is no character like him. He is a one-of-a-kind, once-in-a-lifetime, hell, once-in-an-eternity character. I could sit here and list all of my favorite Cartman moments, but that would probably take close to a week, because at that point I would just be reading the scripts of every episode, and that's how long it would take to watch the whole show. Just go watch basically any episode of South Park, and you will see some of Cartman's best moments. I really didn't even have to say anything here. I could have just said number 1 is Cartman and nothing else, and nobody would question it. Cartman is South Park, and he is perfect.
That's all, folks.
I know I just said that Cartman is the best character in the show, but I just realized that there's one group that I forgot to mention that is undoubtedly the best in the show.